You wake up in the middle of the night to the slam of a door. You begin looking around your house. Something tells you to head down into the basement where your son sleeps. When you reach the bottom of the stairs and see a bucket in front of you with a towel covering it, a strange feeling strikes you. And what you soon find inside that bucket is straight out of the most graphically violent horror films you could ever imagine. My name is M. William Phelps. I'm an investigative journalist and the true crime author of close to 50 books. I've dedicated the past 20 years of my life to helping families of the missing and murdered. Join me. We're crossing the line. And I want to give you a warning right up front here about today's episode. This case includes graphic information some, if not all, may find very disturbing and sensitive. You'll understand what I mean within the first few minutes. It's February 23rd, 2022, near 3:30 a.m. This time of the year in Green Bay, Wisconsin, can only be described as one of the coldest places in the Midwest. Dark, desolate, snowy, with temperatures in the single digits and teens generally. Green Bay police officer Alex Waynish is working the overnight shift and is dispatched to a residence on Stony Brook Lane in downtown Green Bay, not far from Fireman's Park. The 911 call is something straight out of a horror film, which I think you have to hear for yourself to believe.
County Public Safety, how may I help you?
Yes, I'd like an officer at Stony Brook. My friend just woke me up and swears that she found her severed head of her son in the basement.
Okay, tell me what's happening there again.
I have no clue what's happening. My girl swears that she's found her severed head of her son in the basement.
Did you go down there?
In a bucket. I went down. I can't tell what the fuck is. Part of my language. I'm kind of a little freaked out.
Okay, did she just wake up and say that?
Yeah.
And whose head is it?
She's claiming it's her son.
How old is her son?
24, 25.
Has he been missing, or?
No, yeah, he was here yesterday with some chick, and then all of a sudden nobody's here. And she came up to use the restroom a couple times, and she keeps calling and calling, and now she's saying that she hears the phone down there too.
Okay, is she with you right now?
Yes, she's upstairs. She's a little freaked out, and I don't know what to do.
Okay, alright, stand on line. You said you went down there, correct?
Yeah, and I lifted a towel, but I can't see very well, and I can't tell what the hell it is.
So there's something in the bucket.
There's something in the goddamn bucket there.
Do you think she's hallucinating, or do you think that?
I don't think so. I went down there. There's something in the damn bucket. I don't know, man. Is she a little freaked out?
The house is a gold-colored ranch within what is a seemingly quintessential working-class suburban neighborhood. As the 911 dispatcher begins asking questions, there's a bit of disbelief taking place. And at one point, the operator even asks the boyfriend if his girlfriend, who had allegedly found her son's severed head in the basement of her home, could be delusional. For the life of me, I do not understand why someone making this call would be grilled as hard as this 911 dispatcher did for over 7 minutes to the boyfriend. Then again, I understand it's not every day that someone calls into an emergency line saying they've found the head of a loved one in a bucket in the basement of their home. Later on into the call, the boyfriend explains that his girlfriend, the mother of the alleged victim, whose head is apparently in a bucket in the basement, called her son's phone and could hear it ringing down in that cellar. Officer Waynish arrives at the home somewhere just after 3:30 a.m. He meets the boyfriend outside, and the boyfriend walks him into the home. "Down there," the boyfriend says, pointing to the basement door. Waynish walks down the stairs and immediately sees a 5-gallon bucket on the floor, covered with some sort of cloth or beach towel, as Waynish later describes it in his report. He walks over and slowly lifts that towel off the top of the bucket. Sure enough, a man's head, severed at the neckline, is inside the bucket, staring up at him. Nearby is a mattress on the floor. Waynish puts the towel back down over the bucket, turns, and can see the mattress is covered in blood. So he calls it in. The woman who found her son's head tells investigators when they arrive that she had been woken up by a door slamming shut. So she got out of bed to check out what was going on. Her son slept in the basement. She went down there to check if he had just gotten home and what all the racket was about. She didn't see him, but as she turned to go back up the stairs, she spotted a green 5-gallon bucket on the floor with a towel covering it, and it struck her immediately as strange. So she walked over, lifted the towel, and saw her son's head inside the bucket. Imagine the horror and disbelief. The absolute surreal nature of this crime scene, not to mention a mother finding her own son's severed head. How can one even comprehend the shock and emotional distress of it all? The human brain, for the most part, doesn't have anything to compare these images to other than a horror film. It's one of those situations where things don't quite register immediately, and yet you know what you have just seen. Detectives go down into the basement and begin looking around. The head has been crudely severed, as I said, at the neck. The first thing they do is get a photograph of the woman's son and compare it to the head. Sure enough, the dead man is the woman's son, 24-year-old Shad Thyrion. Shad is what reports call a talented artist, especially his wood carvings, a man who loved camping, video games, and spending time with his family. Quote, "He was a kind and compassionate person who thought of others before himself," his obituary would note in the coming days. He worked for his grandfather and father in the family business. Shad wore large-framed glasses, had one of those trendy beards, no mustache, and favored wearing stylish ball caps. In all the photos of him I saw, the kid is smiling and comes across gentle and warm. He had his demons, as some do, but Shad was working on himself. The question in those immediate moments of the investigation is this: what could have set someone off to not only kill the guy, but dismember his body? Who had access to the inside of the house and basement? So far, the mother and the boyfriend. Investigators learned that Shad attended Port High School in Green Bay, same as his new girlfriend, 25-year-old Taylor Schabusiness, no one had seen since the previous day. Could Taylor be down in the basement as well? As investigators continue working the crime scene, it becomes abundantly clear that the only body in that basement is Shad Thyrion. And on that note, they do not recover Shad's entire body. Some of his body parts are missing. Studying what they can while preserving the crime scene, As the pathologist shows up and begins to assess, it's clear from the severed head that Shad was likely strangled as well. In that same bucket, the doctor notes, is, quote, a male organ, which I think we should take as explained. But also plenty of blood, along with 2 knives. In several plastic shopping bags on the floor, they find, in plain sight, are several different body parts and another 3 knives. In a storage tote nearby the bucket is Shad's torso and several internal organs, which appear to have been removed from his body. Shad's killer had to be covered from head to toe with his blood. There doesn't seem to be any way around this. His killer took a long time to dismember him and place his body parts in bags and that tote and bucket. There is blood all over the floor, with indications that Shad's killer tried to clean it all up, but then, at some point, gave up. They speak to Shad's mother. She says, with her boyfriend confirming, the last time she saw Shad was the previous night after he came home with his girlfriend, Taylor, and they retreated down the stairs into the basement. Things seemed, by all accounts, fine with the both of them. Nothing appeared to be off. They didn't know her that well, both explain, but Taylor, with her pale complexion and dark tar-black hair, is quiet and kind of standoffish. She comes across a bit goth, but Shad had a quirky side to him, and they seemed to be getting along pretty well. I always want to be responsible when reporting on a case such as this one. It's important to me as a victim's advocate. This type of case is sensational. It can easily fall into the exploitation category. So some moral caution here will go a long way. Equally important, I think you should know I published a book some years back, Cruel Death, which included 2 people being dismembered by a husband and wife team of killers. One of the detectives in that case I interviewed left his job and couldn't do the work anymore after that case. It was the first time in 50 or so books I have written that I had to put the material away as I worked on it and take a mental break. Another book I published, Every Move You Make, includes a serial killer who used a chainsaw on a victim. I mention this to reiterate that this is serious and sensitive material, extremely graphic, obviously, and not what true crime consumers are used to hearing. Finally, I don't want to bring this family any more stress than they have already endured. I am covering this case because I feel it's important to understand, within the scope of how the investigation plays out, the mind of the monster who committed this horrific act. Because this killer was truly, to borrow a cliche, a wolf in sheep's clothing. What Shad's mother did not know is that his new girlfriend, Taylor Schabusiness, has been married since Valentine's Day 2020 and has a toddler at home. It's unclear if Shad knew this or not. Detectives head over to the address they obtained to check up on Taylor. Anything is possible at this point, they certainly understand. With a married woman, the dismembered body of her boyfriend found in the basement of his mother's home, they might want to begin thinking about Taylor's husband as a person of interest, based on the dynamic of that situation, of course. Detectives also get a bead on the vehicle Taylor drives, so they can be looking out for it. A large van. As they pull up to the apartment complex where she lives, they spot the van right away. After looking inside, they can see probable cause staring back at them, giving them permission to get into that van. What is it that alarmed investigators when they searched the van? There is visible blood all over the inside. I'll be right back. Taylor Schabusiness's husband is actually in prison at the time Shad is murdered. So this excludes him as a potential suspect in this horrific murder. Investigators have a photo of Taylor. As they begin searching the van, she walks out of her apartment. Remember, as far as investigators know, Taylor Schabusiness is the last person to see Shad alive, according to his mother and her boyfriend. One of the investigators searching the van calls over to a colleague. They've found something inside Taylor's van. "Have a look at this," he says. It's a box with additional human body parts inside of it, including 2 dismembered legs. When you think a case cannot get any more dreadful and gruesome, bam, there it is. As they dig into Taylor Schabusiness's past, they discover several crimes: resisting arrest, fleeing from an officer, battery, and threatening a prosecutor or law enforcement officer. So there is, we could gather from that history, a bit of violence in her past. Yet fleeing a police officer and even throwing a punch at him is a far cry from dismembering your boyfriend. So they tread carefully and dig deeper into Taylor's history. Back in early 2020, Taylor meets her husband, and it seems right after that, her problems with law enforcement begin. It starts with a call about a woman, Taylor, knocking on somebody's door. She seems to be under the influence of something. When a cop approaches her, Taylor says, "Why do I have to stop this for you?" So the cop asks, "What's going on here? What are you doing?" "I am not so sure," she says. "I am on a different planet right now." She then twists her forearm over to show the cop, exposing fresh track marks, saying, "I just shot up." Another cop arrives at the scene. Taylor begins arguing with them and then walks toward the street into traffic. They are finally able to arrest her after Taylor kicks both officers and continues making very off and weird comments, most of which make little sense. Sometime later, when a cop tries pulling her over for driving erratically, she leads them on a high-speed chase. When they are finally able to catch her and go through the vehicle she's driving, they find methamphetamine in a syringe, a large elastic band for her arm, cotton balls, and other items someone would use to inject drugs. On that day, they search her van and find additional body parts, which they assume to be Shad's body. Taylor is wearing a black hooded sweatshirt and black sweatpants. After emerging from her apartment, she walks over to the officers searching her van and asks, "Is this because of my arrest warrant?" Investigators notice she has dried blood all over her hands, and there's blood all over her clothing. This is enough, obviously, to bring her in and sit her down and have a chat. Several people they had spoken to at the apartment complex confirmed that during the time frame when Shad would have likely been murdered, Taylor's van was not around. Investigators read Taylor her rights and explain that they had found the head of her boyfriend in the basement of his mother's house, and they want to know if she knows anything about it. "That's pretty fucked up," she says. "Do you know the victim?" they ask her. "Yes." They ask about the van. "It's my roommate's," she says. They ask about the previous night, where she was, what she did. I don't know, she says. I was blacked out. Was it just you and Shad in the basement last night? Yes, nobody else came downstairs. What were you doing? We were smoking the bitch. The bitch? They are confused. What in the hell does that mean? Methamphetamine, she explains. Shad has this chain, and he puts it around his neck. We started having sex. Strangulation is part of the sex act we were doing. Investigators then wonder about their movements throughout the night and if they had contact with anyone else. Did they run into anyone when they got back to Shad's house? Taylor looks at the both of them. She's quiet for a moment. Damn, she says. The head. I cannot believe I left the head. Where is the rest of the body? She laughs. All the body parts should be in the basement. Have fun trying to find all of his organs, she says. There might be a foot or a leg inside the van. Let's take our final break here. The story is a lot, I understand. Please subscribe to Crossing the Line wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to leave a review of the show, especially on Apple Podcasts. I'm doing this show independently now, free from any corporate or big podcasting media company involvement, which allows me to bring you more of the content you want to hear and have asked me for. This is completely our show. Reviews and subscriptions really help. You are my public relations and social media team now, and without your help, I could not do this. And that support, I must tell you, means everything. It's incredibly humbling. And I want to thank each one of you for listening. We can grow the show together, which will allow me to do even bigger things with it. If you go to crossingtheline.biz or mwilliamphelps.com, you can contact me there to suggest cases or just say hello. And look for me across all social media platforms at M. William Phelps. That's the @ symbol and my name, M. William Phelps. I want to say that as Taylor Schabusiness confesses to what she did, she spends some time going into great detail. A lot of it is extremely graphic and doesn't make a lot of sense. Not in a way that investigators disbelieve her, but more in the realm of trying to comprehend the reality that human beings are capable of just about anything. She admits, for example, that after she killed Shad, she did very explicit sexual things to his corpse. I will spare you those details. Another important element of this case to understand is that when hardcore drug use is involved in murder, especially shooting up and smoking methamphetamine, it does change the psychological stakes a bit. It can give us some insight into certain aspects of these terrible crimes. Taylor Schabusiness states, for example, that as she began choking Shad, she, quote, just went crazy, which then led to the sadistic and post-death sexual nature of her crimes. And then she talks about how she enjoyed watching him die. Yeah, I liked it, she tells investigators. Do you understand, she then asks, what it's like to love something so much that you kill it? She also says she played with his body for between 2 and 3 hours before dismembering him. Then she says something that's kind of strange within the context. I didn't mean to kill him, she goes on, but after I began choking him, I liked it and just kept going. What this is Taylor Schabusiness justifying the gruesome aspects of her crimes. She equates love and dismemberment and murder within the same thought. It's entirely by design on her part, telling these investigators what she thinks they want to hear. The bottom line within what she says is that she took great pleasure in what she did. Taylor Schabusiness ultimately pleads not guilty by mental defect, and her trial goes forward in July 2023 after several psychologists conclude that she is absolutely competent to stand trial. Insanity as a defense won't work. Taylor was not insane at the time of her crimes. At one point, her attorney argues that the graphic photographs of victim Shad Thyrion's head in that bucket should not be seen by jurors. As her lawyer addresses the judge, speaking specifically about the photos, Taylor begins laughing. Later, they end up covering her face with only her eyes exposed. Before her sentencing, the judge gives us a brief background of Taylor leading up to her crimes. Sort of a bio.
No, there isn't.
Okay. Very good. Well then, when passing sentence on cases like this, the court has to consider the factors set forth in State versus Galleon. So I have to consider the gravity of the offense, the character of the defendant, the need to protect the public, as well as other aggravating and mitigating circumstances, including rehabilitative needs and punishment and deterrence, and then craft a sentence in each case that's appropriate. In this case, when I consider the defendant's character, I can say that over the course of this case, I've learned a great deal about you, Ms. Schabusiness. First of all, you were born in Chicago, lived there until you were about age 12 rather. You seem to have had a stable childhood. You were loved by your mother and your father and your brother. And unfortunately, your mother passed away when you were 12, your brother passed away in a vehicle accident, and your dad's incarcerated. Her father's employment was transferred to Green Bay when she was about 12 years old, and hence began the contact Ms. Schabusiness had with this community. She attended Bayport High School. At about 16, she moved to Texas to live with her grandmother. She graduated from high school in Cotulla, Texas, and eventually came back to Green Bay because she missed her father and her brother, which again doesn't surprise me any because, as I've indicated, I think they both love her very much. She's worked in this community. I read over the pre-sentence investigation report that I ordered, and that outlines some work experience that she has, and I think that's a favorable character trait because, quite frankly, not everyone that lives in this community does work, and I think it indicates someone who wants to get out and support themselves and not make anybody else do it. She has a limited court record. She's got a family who cares about her. And although sometimes I think people take that for granted, if you sit in this courtroom long enough, you'll realize that you should never take your family for granted because so many people come in sitting in that chair in an orange jumpsuit and have absolutely no one who will come in and say, I'm with her. And that takes a little bit of fortitude to come in and do that. And frankly, today she's got extended family.
Part of it for me is unsurprising. I am interested in where the sociopath breaks, meaning when do they go from causing general chaos in the lives around them to something more violent and even sinister like we see in this case. Although I am not a psychologist, I know enough to determine that Taylor likely doesn't qualify as a psychopath. Definitely a sociopath. One might expect she would be a psychopath based on her crimes, but that is not how the diagnosis part of this works. Somewhere within her life, Taylor Schabusiness snapped, crossed a line that led to the next line, upping the stakes at each interval. One does not normally inject methamphetamine and live such a sordid life, giving nothing back to society without having endured some sort of trauma. I think we all understand and realize that. You're numbing the pain. There's something there you don't want to deal with. So you do the drugs. It's kind of a distraction. But it's also important to note that we cannot confuse or conflate sociopathy with mental illness. Although sociopathy itself is considered a form of mental illness based on the antisocial personality disorder being a component, mental illness consists of a very broad and wide-ranging set of psychological conditions, such as depression, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and others. You get it. All of which, I should say, the court in this case rejected and ruled out. So Taylor fits more into the lack of empathy, lack of remorse, pathological lying, disregard for societal norms, and other traits associated with sociopathy. If we go back to her interview with investigators, it'll give us a little bit of insight into what I'm saying here. It's clear from what she said, she knew what she was doing and even specified how much she enjoyed it. You see, that's the difference. She is sentenced to life without parole. At one point, this takes place inside the courtroom.
Stop it.
Taylor, relax, Taylor.
Really, stop.
She's got your cord.
I'm not there.
Clear the courtroom.
Taylor, it's me.
Oh, you have to go out, sir. Clear the courtroom.
Taylor, settle down.
Yep.
Calm down, Mia. Calm
Go
down.
out.
Taylor, settle down. Taylor, settle down.
Love you.
That commotion you just heard is Taylor Schabusiness attacking her attorney and the courtroom guards subduing her. She has this look of utter disdain for due process, I'd say, on her face as she does this. It's as if the lack of control she has in the situation sets her off, and she tries to take back some of that control by lashing out at the person closest to her, a clear sign of her sociopathy. Sociopaths tend to be thrill seekers and very impulsive. They need constant stimulation. They also take big risks. We see this over and over in this case. Taylor Schabusiness goes on to attack a sergeant at the correctional facility where she is serving her life sentence. It's a vicious attack. In November 2024, her attorney files a notice of appeal, which is standard procedure here in these cases. I do not think she has a chance of winning this appeal. If you are new to the show, I don't normally cover graphic cases of this nature. I chose this one because if we're going to discuss murder, we sometimes have to delve into those uncomfortable spaces to gather a better understanding of what's going on behind the mind of the murderer. That's it for this week. Be safe. Be aware. Sources for this episode include State of Wisconsin versus Taylor Denise Schabusiness, criminal complaint. Shad Thyrion's obituary. Convicted killer Taylor Schabusiness accused of attacking sergeant in prison by Vivian Barrett, December 17, 2024. Green Bay Press Gazette. Crossing the Line is executive produced by M. William Phelps, LLC, and Matthew Valentinas, Mom's Basement Management. Written by me, M. William Phelps. Audio mastering and mixing by Matt Russell. Original music written and performed by Thomas Mooney, Tom Phelps, and Matt Russell.